Ethics in Breathwork. The best known summary of an ethical model of which I'm aware comes from the therapist Kaelia Taylor in her book, The Ethics of Caring. The Ethics of Caring model suggests that we all have an internal ethical compass and that generally know when we are, quotes, off course in relationship. The premise is that we all are working all the time towards having a balanced sense of right relationship with self, others, and spirit. The right in right relationship does not mean that we are wrong when we are off that inner defined line of right relationship. It just means that quite possibly we are under the influence of our many unconscious motivations having to do with personal desire, fear, or spiritual longing. As soon as we know we are not quite right in relationship, our first step in using the Ethics of Caring model is to find our self-compassion. Without self-compassion, it's going to be hard to get past our denial or rationalization or any of the other ego defense mechanisms we all employ to protect us from shame and blame. Often, these defense strategies are also, quotes, protecting us from a quick readjustment back into right relationship. So we need a prompt, liberal application of self-compassion. The issues that arise in work with non-ordinary states of consciousness are in some ways like ethical issues in ordinary states of consciousness. But non-ordinary state issues are more wide-ranging and more subtle. For example, the need for safety is greater, such as providing more clarity about informed consent, boundaries, roles, money, and time. In other ways, ethical issues can be quite different in these states. For example, if a breather has an experience of cosmic oneness, and the facilitator somehow tunes into that and has an experience of merging with the client, the facilitator has the unique responsibility to consciously and accountably come back to ordinary consciousness, time, roles, responsibilities, and to help the client do the same. Also in these states, one needs to be aware of and accepting of a greater range of experiences, such as all the transpersonal experiences described in the Graph cartography, which occur with much more frequency in breathwork sessions than ordinary therapies or techniques. Breathwork is a technique where talking and touching and sacred experiences often occur in combination. Together, they can have a potent synergistic effect on our unconscious motivations and raise ethical issues. Here are the categories of experiences as Groff described them in non-ordinary states. 1. Sensory experiences and motor manifestations. Could be tetany, tightness, pain, numbness, tingling, temperature fluctuation. 2. Biographical experiences of events that have happened to us from birth to the present time. Positive and negative, releasing trauma, omission and commission, grieving. Reliving is more than just remembering. 3. Perinatal experiences. From the fetal experiences during gestation and pregnancy through the birth process, to the experiences immediately after birth, complications of birth, anesthesia, birth as a sexual experience. And 4, transpersonal experiences, which can take us beyond our bodies and our own personal ego identities. Conception, unity, out-of-the-body experiences, merging with other life forms, becoming one with the elements, past lives, communication with archetypes, yogic sleep states. So ethical issues pertain to longings, feelings, and motivations which resonate at our very core, the most powerful forces in our lives are our drives toward and away from change, money, sexuality, power, love, truth, inspiration, and oneness. The most profound or intense moments in breathwork are when those drives are directly encountered by both the facilitator and the client. The keys to professional ethical behavior are authentic caring for self and other, coupled with a willingness to examine our own motivations, willingness to tell the truth to ourselves, to our peers, and to our clients as appropriate, and a willingness to ask for help and learn through observation, consultation, training, and peer supervision. A list of ethical principles and guidelines for breathwork can be found on the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance's website. The GPBA is the professional organization which coordinates the standards for professional breathwork training and ethics worldwide. Therapist training. The first challenge for therapists in being an effective change agent and teacher of faster than normal breathing therapeutic breathwork skills is becoming safe and conversant with the nonlinear world of their own sympathetic nervous system. The interactive energetic systems in the consulting room require that therapists be clear enough of their own, quotes, emotional blind spots to be effective guides for clients. The helper must have the courage to be helped to greater levels of their own vulnerability and sensitivity. The comfort zone of therapeutic distance must be set aside when doing our own work as a therapist. The goal is to increase awareness of our own unconscious or shadow parts to effect greater self-integration. It ranges from difficult to impossible to lead a client down a path when one has not trod it themselves. The benefits many therapists have derived from accepting this challenge are a greater sense of personal vitality, increased ability to work with a variety of clients more directly and effectively, and less compassion fatigue as a result. I both serve and support my clients and see them as mirrors in whom I witness the parts of me that are in process of healing. Through my practice of breathwork, I am well able to keep therapeutic boundaries, even more consciously, without distancing and labeling the client as sick or deviant. They energetically respond to collaborative work as opposed to being, quotes, worked on as a specimen. Now, I suspect most therapists would feel insulted by the insinuation that they think of, much less treat, their clients as specimens. Nonetheless, when clients journeying into an area of conflict and fear causes me as a therapist to subtly guard myself emotionally, often by retreating to a mental interpretation, advice giving, and or protective body language, impeding my own breathing, I'm conveying the subtle message of you're sick and I need to manage you. Many clients are all too willing to accept this label because they are not comfortable with their own feelings and have concluded something's wrong with them, as opposed to seeing their feelings as a form of emotional intelligence that is trying to communicate valuable messages. These signals can warn them before they engage in behaviors that get them less of what they really want. My job as a therapist is to help them free these messages from negative judgment and translate them into self-affirmation and productive action. This challenge for me in my therapy training was monumental. I had learned to suppress almost all of my feelings as a child, causing me to be less than open to those who expressed them freely. I could understand intellectually the benefits of accepting one's feelings, but was terrified to fully experience mine mostly defaulting to family patterns of withdrawal, sarcasm, or intellectualization. Only years of work in Gestalt and bioenergetic sessions helped me incorporate increased safety with my feelings into my body. This was before breathwork started to become popular in the 1970s. Breathwork added a new dimension to my self-awareness as a young psychotherapist because of its direct access to the emotional body. Bioenergetics, the body-mind therapy I studied with Alexandra Lowen, had already showed me how the experience of fear correlated with breath constriction. Breathwork's ability to go directly to emotional material while keeping the breath open and flowing left little recourse for my intellectual defenses. During such periods of emotional upheaval and restructuring that accompany a change process in a client's life, our lives can feel on the edge of out of control. Indeed, the old methods of emotional control are loosened, and behaviors can appear impulsive or even dangerous to those who have an investment in keeping everything at status quo, such as family members, friends, or co-workers. Having a therapist and possibly a network of supporters who have gone through their own process of emotional recovery and who can provide stability and guidance is crucially important in staying on the road to growth, not veering into the ditch of hurtful behaviors or reactive regression. Therapeutic breathwork combines the tools of breath awareness, slower than normal breathing, maintenance breathing, and faster than normal breathing, all masterfully designed to help with emotional and mental regulation en route to a life of greater freedom and satisfaction. An increasing number of psychotherapists have been seeking out therapeutic breathwork training in recent years. The following are personal accounts of therapists who have taken breathwork training to facilitate their clients in the process. Account number 1 is from Ron, a veteran psychotherapist who used his personal healing with therapeutic breathwork to inspire him to become a certified professional breathworker and integrate breathwork into his therapy practice. He shared the following experience of deep healing of his lifelong vertigo issues as a breathworker in a breathworker training. Never before in any form of therapy I had experienced had I ever been able to break through a wall that appears when panic and dizziness occur. At this point, in whatever mode I might be working, something would halt the process, and my breathing, of course, and I could not go any further. As I got deeper into this breathwork session, I encountered a deep sense of terror and blackness, and things began to spin. With encouragement, I was able to keep aware of my breathing and stayed with the process despite my longing to bolt and a flurry of beliefs that only suffering and no gain awaited me in this encounter. In reviewing the journal entry I made after the session, I described what I was experiencing as being in a dark and terrifying hell. I was aware of recurring fears of suffocating that I have often had in this kind of severe panic. This process helped me deepen my peace with my deceased mother and take me a step forward in healing the wounds connected to my absent father. Somewhere along the way in this process, I became aware that I had taken on my parents' fear of suffering. I believe that this was a way to try to have a connection with them, though with obvious limitations and consequences. I got clear that my parents were in their own lights and that I could love them eternally just as they are. This experience helped me tremendously and deepened my understanding and ability in helping my clients in the ways they try to connect through shared symptoms in a desperate effort to have a link in a larger and sometimes scary world. The benefits for me in this session have been astounding. I realized that panic and vertigo had been like a wall that I could never penetrate. And through this one session alone, I passed through that wall and began traveling the territory beyond. How incredible to be on the other side of something that I wondered if I could ever penetrate. This has provided hope and encouragement to me, especially at times when I get discouraged or doubtful if I will move through a particular issue. And I think I have been better able to bring that kind of helpfulness and hopefulness to my clients from an understanding and sincere place. At this point, I do not believe I would have been able to bring breathwork to others, but it launched me along the way. To have a breakthrough like this creates so much excitement, hope, and curiosity to learn more and heal more, and this has energized me forward in my own healing and in the ways I can assist others in their processes. Personal account number 2. Claire is a psychotherapist whose personal experience with therapeutic breathwork led her to its use with her clients. What most intrigues me about breathwork is the experience of discovery and the natural healing that takes place in a breathwork session. I have witnessed and have participated in discovery and healing in my 20-plus years of practice as a traditional psychotherapist, but my experience of breathwork brings a whole new dimension to my understanding of healing. As an example, I've experienced sessions in my body related to anxiety and depression released in the process of my own breathwork sessions. After a session, I most invariably feel a profound sense of peace, often without knowing the storyline attached to the healing. My conscious connected breathing discovered the pain and was the vehicle of its release. Traditional psychotherapy is sometimes so attached to the storyline that the relief can get delayed in order to satisfy the intellectual understanding. I am grateful that I became introduced to breathwork for my own growth and to enrich my therapy practice for my clients. Personal account number 3. Lily, a licensed clinical social worker, reports that awareness of the connection between her own breathing and anxiety has been a great asset in assisting her clients. I was drawn to do breathwork in the early 80s. This began a connection with breathwork and my own awareness of my breathing and my body. My own breathwork has facilitated being in my body and being able to notice when I'm not. I've cleared many negative beliefs, the bottom line belief being I'm unwanted. My breath has brought me to a more loving relationship with myself, which continues to be a place of growth. I continue to claim more aliveness on all levels by working with my breath. It's my first go-to to become more aware and present. As a licensed clinical social worker, I notice and think about what people are doing with their breathing from our first meeting on. I give homework of full belly breathing to do daily. This has lots of positive impact for people, decreasing anxiety, increasing the ability to fall asleep. I've often heard to say, take a big breath. Restricted breathing is common to almost everyone. Just working to open up clients' breathing changes a lot, increasing their ability to be more centered, more aware, and more connected to their body and emotions, helping release emotions rather than stuff them. The breath helps people hang out and feeling good, which is hard for many. We have been so accustomed to feeling less than. Personal account number 4. Sandra, an art therapist, has integrated her inspirational leadership talents into her work with some very challenging populations. At a summer camp for severely emotionally disabled youth, I facilitated circular breathing, slower than normal therapeutic breathwork breathing technique, at the beginning of our art therapy sessions each day. 30 teenagers surprised me by actually closing their eyes and doing the circular breathing without any disruption and without anyone refusing to do it. And they followed the directions perfectly as the room became totally silent. They were absorbed in the process. The camp director took pictures. She was amazed, it was later reported to me, how it helped some of them during challenging situations in the following weeks, when by themselves they paused and did the circular breathing to bring their energy back to calm themselves. When facilitating healing for alcoholic and other drug addiction groups for a Native American social service organization, I taught circular breathing. A young male group member told me he was on the Huber Law detention program, working during the day and returning to jail around 5 p.m. His wife had not brought his children to the jail to see him in over 6 weeks, even though he begged her to do so over and over. One night, he was writhing in his bed in so much pain, missing his children. Then he remembered to breathe as he had been taught to soothe himself, and soon he fell asleep. The next day, the children were there to visit him. The personal account of a medical professional. An anesthesiologist recounts in his words how the transformational effect of breathwork in concert with focused psychotherapy took me on a 9-year journey from psychic fragmentation and severe cultural conditioning to personal wholeness and family and community centeredness. I explored spirituality, energy medicine, and martial arts prior to my engagement with focused and regular psychotherapy. And although these areas added tools to my toolkit of psychological stability, they did not offer the grounding, stabilizing, and integrative experiences that I encountered with breathwork when combined with the psychotherapy sessions I did. To ferret out the sources of personal internal tension and neurosis and examine them in the light of day is a natural process with psychotherapy. However, this sort of psychologic excavation often results only in an intellectual understanding of these psychological tensions. Intellectual examination of emotional, often non-rational issue ultimately provides fruitless in the intellectual examination, does not trace these issues to their root in the autonomic nervous system of the patient. That is, the fight or flight response. The use of conscious connected breathing in the form of therapeutic breathwork allows the client and therapist to plumb the sources of psychological tensions with the client's autonomic nervous system, essentially the spinal cord and brainstem. Conditioned, fearful responses to memories, thoughts, or situations represent reflex arcs in the spinal cord and brainstem, which are expressed through the sympathetic nervous system. Breathwork trains the client to identify the feelings and deeply seated sources of neurosis and transform them holistically during the psychotherapy session. In my experience as a client as well as practitioner of therapeutic breathwork, I can confidently testify that the psychological, emotional, and physical integration I sought in psychotherapy would not have been possible without the tools of breathwork. Research. There have been numerous research studies on the use of regular conscious connected breathing programs, faster than normal breathing, in alcohol recovery, for example, with over 50% sustained sobriety. Other research has demonstrated the positive effect of breath modulation on anxiety and depression. There are a host of studies that cite the positive mental health benefits of holotropic breathwork, another faster-than-normal breathing technique. James Eierman, a psychiatrist and certified breathwork practitioner, did a study on the use of faster-than-normal breathing with 11,000 psychiatric inpatients from a variety of psychiatric units dedicated to various diagnoses, who participated in holotropic breathwork over 12 years at a community hospital. The outcome measures, transpersonal experiences, were reported by 82% of the participants, and this procedure was well received. No complaints of adverse reactions were recorded during the sessions or afterwards on the clinical units. There are also numerous studies affirming the benefits of mindfulness breathing, a slower than normal breathing modulation. A list of breathwork-related research can be found on the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance site. Now, my 33 years of courses in integrative psychology and breathwork are available online at transformationsusa.com and through our in-person and virtual training programs. I now virtually train and teach internationally. I invite you to investigate our training programs and give yourself the opportunity to open doors to life-enhancing personal and professional growth. Our trainings are approved for professional continuing education credits in the United States through the National Board of Certified Counselors and the National Association of Alcohol and Drug Addiction Counselors. Contact us at transformationsusa.com or area code 414-351-5770. I look forward to sharing breathwork's role as it is integrated into psychotherapy and all other healing arts, or experienced on its own.